This is TV Ate My Dinner. My name is Sean. I'm here with Lynn. Leatherface is sort of a fun franchise because he comes through in certain waves of horror tradition. Like I was saying with Hostel and all those, when they started bringing torture porn in, that's when they made the decision, 2003, we're going to reboot Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they did the Michael Bay Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, which was not bad. It was fun. I enjoyed that remake. But then
it's one of those
2 years
franchises
later,
that's come and gone.
They did that.
In how good
they made one more of those, and
cool.
you're like, no, I don't like them anymore. Like, it doesn't sustain as a franchise. Like, that wasn't good. I don't want to see any more of these. But now this one is.
It's one of those ones that's like
Halloween.
been rebooted and restarted, and once again, this new one is a direct sequel to only the first one.
This takes the entire playbook from Halloween 2018 because it's a sequel only to the first film. It takes the name of the first film. I think brings back none of the actor. I think the actor has passed away, but it brings back the legacy.
Brings back that character
from the first film as a badass.
She's not though.
She's not, and it doesn't have any weight in the story partly because it's not the same actor, and partly because it's not Jamie Lee Curtis. It matters in Halloween because Jamie Lee Curtis is a good actor who's had a storied career outside of the Halloween films. So when she comes back to do these films, it's an event. It matters.
Yeah. This lady was one of the Borgs, though.
Well, and I like her as an actor.
But no, wait, was it the old lady from the beginning who's one of the Borg? I was looking up some of the actors in this movie.
The old lady, Alice Krieg is the Borg. Yeah, you're talking about. Yeah,
and they give her the worst makeup job.
This lady was in
this movie was
Mandy. She was one of the Mandy crew, but
she doesn't do a bad job
lady was
of being that character
in the Star Trek movie. They all do really well. All the actors are good. I mean, the characters they bring in are not so great, and going in because. Here's something they always do in horror movies, whether it's a rebranding or a reboot or it's a brand new film. They always think we're going to get the kids by really tapping into what kids like in this exact minute. And what do kids like? Kids like quote unquote influencers. What do they do? Why are they influencers? I don't know. They're filming themselves. So they must be on
but they didn't
a social
act
media.
Like influencers.
No,
they act like business people, but they all look like they're 12. Like
it feels like you started out with a different script and you just sort of put different skins on the characters, and you're like, well, they're not investment bankers who are buying up the old town, which might have been a lot more fun to see get cut up. But
that might have actually worked.
They're these millennial influencers. It's like, who's this movie for? I feel like you're making this movie for people my age because you're trying to set these kids up as people we won't like, but then you're trying to target an audience.
The old lady's death isn't really their fault. They try to act nicely to the old lady, and
it's also
they get the is she being racist thing.
It's definitely a story.
Then he's like, fine, get the police to take her out.
The story only started the minute the movie started, because if you start like trying to reconstruct, how did any of this happen? Are you telling me? Because you have a busload of people coming here
and you haven't been here
buy this property, and you have not only have you not been here to the point where you didn't even realize that there are people that live
inhabited
here, and you've never checked to make sure you actually own all these buildings, and
but that bit didn't even make sense because
till now to see if you have the deeds. You're here to sell the property. What if you
physically having the deed doesn't mean that you own the property? Like, they're like, well, she's got the deed. Clearly she owns the property. It's like, yeah, she owned the property before, and then she had trouble with the bank, and then she lost the property.
Yeah, when your property
she physically still has a copy of the deed. That. You can still have a physical copy of the deed. It doesn't mean you own a place. It's like this is the magic certificate that gives me ownership of the house. It's like, no, they can make a new deed.
That's again feels like they wanted to create a sin for them, because this idea, and I kind of like it. I don't want to say this like I didn't like the movie at all. If you want to take Leatherface and just make a straight up slasher franchise out of Leatherface, I think that's fine. I'll watch if Netflix would crank out one of these a year, I'd watch it. But
some of the kills were
Leatherface
fun.
is not Michael Myers.
The ball was good.
So, and he's not Jason, and that's what you're trying to turn him into. Because now
the
he's
reason the original worked was that it was a
silent.
whole family of creepy people. It was more don't go into the backwoods because the backwoods people are creepy.
And he was,
It was
so
one of
weird
those-
and infantilized. He's running around squealing and hollering, and he's like so scary. Like even in the remake, in the 2003 version, he's like coming out and going, "Rah!" And you're like, holy shit, that is scary. Like I really.
And in this one, he's like, I didn't know his backstory. Like after he murdered everybody in the first movie, he went and started living in an orphanage.
Because
and then just hid.
Full-grown man-child would go into an actual orphanage, even though he was 40.
And hid his chainsaw in the walls.
Yeah, like we said, the whole movie started, like the whole story started that the second, like, because I can't piece together the way, and some of this is true of the Halloween remake too, and as we see, in the Star Wars sequels too, it's like I'm having a hard time seeing how time passed for the amount of time you're saying it did, with none of this shit coming up until now. Like we're walking into the story as though a lot of stuff has happened, but seeing that, I can't believe this hasn't come up before now. None of this stuff seems like we walked into a story that was already in motion.
Yeah. Yeah, none of it made sense. I was yelling at the screen from the beginning, like, what are they trying to sell in this town? What's going on? Why does that guy have a body shop there if he's just their caretaker?
Yeah, if they bought the whole place, why is he there?
The main character's plot, the backstory of having been in High School Massacre.
Yeah, that's in poor taste.
And what it made it really confusing as to what they were trying to say. Do we not like guns? Do we like guns? Because the first movie had this really clear idea of it was also about people eating meat. And it was about how horrible and gory the slaughterhouse is. And it was kind of a vegan movie.
This was the Scream thing again. It's like you went in feeling like you were supposed to have some level of social commentary, but you didn't have anything to say. So you just kind of mouthed the words like again, like let's just Google a bunch of things that are topical to the current moment. People like influencers. They're all influencers. Oh, they're gentrifying this area. It's like, I don't think you like, I'm not telling you, I don't want to put you in a box. But I think your story about this young black man who comes in to gentrify these white rednecks town is probably not making a proper commentary on gentrification and its social impacts. So I would stop right there. If that's what you're trying to do with it, I would really rethink that. But the other thing was like, what else is going on? School shootings. Okay, so one of them survived a school shooting, and that gives her survival skills. It's like, okay, there's something there. But what is she doing with that survivor's guilt? We keep coming back to it, but how does it actually applied? Because she feels like she feels cowardly because she survived. And that's a fair thing for her to feel, because that's how survivors.
And I had that dynamic with her and her sister, where her sister feels like she can't cope with the real world. And that's one of the reasons why she's trying to take her in the middle of nowhere. But the middle of nowhere still has guns. And her sister's trying to overcompensate by protecting her from the guns. Whereas as soon as she sees that guy with a gun, she's all like dissing on him. But then the main character, the younger sister, goes and picks up the gun as soon as she sees it. So she's clearly trying to work through some issues, but her sister is maybe blocking her. And that could have been a good through line. It could have been something where she kind of was interested in healing herself, but her sister was holding her back.
Over protecting her sister in that? Where do we see? Because what they do end up with in their narrative is the way we play through that arc is we have the old Sally tells her, if you run now, you'll be running forever. It's like, no, just like in the school shooting, if you run now, you'll get away. There's like, what are you guys trying to say? The arc is that she should have defended the other kids in the school shooting, and therefore she has to redeem that failure now?
Yeah.
Because
that kind of
That is not that this is an appropriate forum to be talking about survivor's guilt, especially in something as charged as a school shooting. And certainly you guys are not equipped to be having the gun discussion. But
Yeah.
even if we accepted all of those elements as being fair game for this story, what you're saying, what her arc is, like her redemption is that she comes back to face him, in suggesting that that's what she should have done in the original situation. Now, I understand in her frame of mind, she feels that way. And it's important to kind of separate the character's frame of mind from what is being framed as true and moral in the story. But the story doesn't make those distinctions. So, like, if you had gotten your sister out of there and left, then that would have been a victory. But
Like,
you weren't required to go
what happened was
people.
that because she had that trauma, she knew what to do, which was go away, get out of there, not to try and stop and fight. And that, I also think that trauma, where they took the Sally character, is really weird. Like that she became a police person, whatever. But that when we meet her, she's slaughtering a pig. When
Yeah, so you learned
part of the original was. Part of the original idea was like, hey, it's horrible to slaughter things. Like, look at what happens when it happens to a person. It's gross. So you would have thought that maybe she wouldn't be into a slaughtering pig.
And I don't want to tell you your
Slaughtering pigs,
business here, but I don't think you looked that hard for Leatherface. There's like 2 people left in town, and he's one of them. So
Yeah.
maybe you should have checked the orphanage where he's standing there in the group shot.
She was just like sitting there waiting for someone else to get killed.
Fine.
And that's the only way she knew he was still alive.
And
Still family members.
Like I said, all these movies do that because we understand that the reality is that 40 years has passed in our time, and they want to come back to the story. So we know there's a gap that the story can't fully account for as to why this much time. I did like in that how she shows up and he has no idea who she is. That was kind of an interesting element.
For me, it was Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
But he doesn't even try to kill her, whereas the original Leatherface was just like, we'll kill everyone, don't we? Like,
Well, that's why I get the sense from, and I don't think this is a good or a bad, but I get the sense from what they're trying to do with Leatherface here is they were really trying to redefine him, not so much like Michael Myers in the new Halloween, although he's like that, but he reminded me a lot of what Rob Zombie did with Michael in his version of Halloween.
any horses in this one?
Where you've hired like a giant man to play him, which they also did in 2003. And so now he's a larger than life figure. Like the original Michael Myers was not a small person, but he was just like a normal. It was scary because he's like a normal person. And that's the ghost face.
It's scary because I had a chainsaw and was wearing someone's face.
This guy was like a big, like odd, like man baby. But
Wait, they deliberately picked someone huge.
But he wasn't like a wrestler, like one of these big like Tyler Mane guys, like in Rob Zombie's. I kind of think the missed opportunity here might have been that they should have gotten Rob Zombie to do this, because I think all of his sensibilities that he tried to apply to Halloween didn't work for Halloween. But that's because I think what he really wanted to make is this, and I kind of wouldn't mind seeing Rob Zombie's version of Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, and then we're trying to do like these 2 social commentaries and they didn't work at all. Like the result of the main girl's storyline is that she picks up a gun and shoots him, and that doesn't even kill him. And her sister has to come in and get him with a chainsaw. So a gun's good or gun's bad.
And the chair jumper at the end where she gets killed anyway, it's like, well, I'm not trying to hold you to being an elevated horror film, but you've chosen a path. Like this is an arc you thought you were going to take this character down. So where are you leaving her? Like what
and then she just like is driven away.
She's going
really slowly in this self-driving car going, no.
Like the Austin Powers where he's like headed towards the guy with on the bulldozer or whatever, but he's like 100 feet away going 2 miles an hour. That's what it feels like. Like, I think you can drive these things. I don't think the car has.
I mean, you turn the auto on, you can turn it off. I know she didn't think of it in the moment, but she could do a full. You know how easy it is to crawl out the skylight? It's not like they can make it seem like it's too deep. I can't get out of here. You know, just jump.
Or just run away.
If you wanted to.
Just run.
I like how quickly he just kills the sister, though. Like, earlier on, he kind of takes his time a little bit, but like, no, this bitch got away.
Now you got him riled.
Hey.
Well, they just wanted to have a big. It's hardly even a chair jumper because it does come out of nowhere, but it's not. It's not surprising. It's not a fun. No one did them like Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th would do it like 3 times in a row, like in movies, where you just thought every time that piano music starts, you're like, oh, something's about to happen. They were good at it.
Well, yeah, like they didn't get away for long enough. They were like, we pushed him in the pool. He's definitely dead now. And then they get into the car and immediately he's back. And it's like, well, it wasn't long enough.
Yeah. I want to see you get home. And that's when he comes at you. Then that'd be interesting.
Because that actually would have played into the whole he's going to haunt you forever. But the only reason why he haunted Sally forever is because she didn't get over it. He never chased her or anything.
And that's the thing. So if that would have been a fine takeaway too, if you listened to Sally and it turned out like actually she was dead wrong. She was in the state of arrested development for most of her life. She carried around a Polaroid taken by a psychopath of her friends who got eaten by the same batch of psychopaths. That's a weird memento. So
yeah, if the end game had been like, you know, it's okay to survive a school shooting or this or whatever, if that end game, if that takeaway had been, it's okay. You survived. That's okay. You can move on. It's all right to move on from this trauma.
She's in the garbage heap.
And that would have been a positive message.
Away. It's like, fuck you, lady. We'd have been away already if you hadn't locked us in a truck. So I'm taking advice. And we all probably would have survived. You don't look like someone that should be giving life advice. See that?
I mean, he didn't chase her originally, Sally. So
yeah, how
and she went down like a putz. Like she shoots him once, and then they have a brief fight, and he just chucks the chainsaw in her. Like it doesn't. I'm like, you've had 50 years to prepare for this. You should have been doing better.
That was the best you could do. Yeah, he barely even noticed you were here.
Yeah.
Like he didn't prepare at all.
You were an inconvenience.
He didn't know you were coming. His only preparation was burying a chainsaw in a wall, which was unnecessary. Like, I feel like he would have been more effective. Like, chainsaws are not very good weapons, so he probably could have killed these kids with anything.
Well, they didn't even work up the gun plot line. If they were going to work into, you need to grab the gun because then you're taking control of your own trauma, which also could have worked. There's this scene where she goes and picks up the gun and then gets scared and puts it back down. And then her sister comes and grabs her like 10 minutes later and they've got this weird fake out. Did she actually sleep with the guy or something like that? Which never really goes anywhere. And the sister is mad at her for just being there and bails her out. And it's like, that could have been a scene where her sister walked in on her while the guy is trying to show her the gun. And she's trying to empower herself by looking at the gun and trying to take control of her own trauma. And the sister comes in, gets overprotective, and gets her out.
Yeah.
And we're showing that she's trying to take something of it, but her sister is infantilizing her and not allowing her to move into this zone where she's in control of herself. And that could have actually been a good thing if she had been able to save her sister at the end by taking control of her trauma and picking up a gun that's so scary to her and shooting him with it. But they didn't go that because they didn't build up the scenes properly to it. And then when she did get the gun, she just used it.
Because the idea
there's so many directions where they could have used it. They could have used what they were building up,
and you took me away from that place because you're trying to shield me from that thing. But I need to be in that place and make my peace with what happened and all this kind of stuff. And you're trying to keep me from having those thoughts. I'm going to have those thoughts anywhere.
Like that could have been it also could have been a good if they had have worked Sally's character in earlier. And her ethos is take the gun, take control, go shoot him. There you have your trauma fixed. And that's what you need to do. And she could have found that her way was neither of those ways. Her way wasn't, I have to kill him. Her way wasn't, I have to avoid it. Her way is just, I have to find my own peace. And you could have actually had something interesting. But instead they built all of these elements and they sort of tried to chuck them in, but they didn't actually build them properly.